Wow, aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of a man locking his wife out of his house in 1542. Truly tragic. Hello there, and welcome back to The Final Couplet with me, Theo Cowan. Today we are looking at Sonnet 89. But, as I think I mentioned in Sonnet 88, this is a continuation of Sonnet 88. So, a Sonnet 88 part 2, if you will. But it leads on directly from Sonnet 88. Same themes, same vibe, different sonnet. And if you remember all the way back to Sonnet 87, Shakespeare was breaking up with his lover, basically saying, look, we shouldn't be together anymore. And then he came back with Sonnet 88 to say, and I'm happy to take all the blame for the breakup. Like, call me toxic, all of that. That's fine. It's all on me. I'll take the blame. And of course, he's not done there. You'd expect him to be done there and just nip it in the bud. See you later. Move on to someone else, get on with your life. But no, he's come back with Sonnet 89, aka Sonnet 88 part 2, and he's continuing on the same theme of, look, I'll take the blame. Don't worry. By this point, if I was his lover, I'd just be like, yeah, alright, take the blame. I honestly don't care as long as I just don't see you again, alright? But, you know, this is Shakespeare's vibe, isn't it? He's always got to be writing stuff. He's always got to be performing. He's a show-off. Anyway, with that said, let's take a listen to Sonnet 89. Say that thou didst forsake me for some fault, and I will comment upon that offence. Speak of my lameness, and I straight will halt against thy reasons, making no defence. Thou canst not, love, disgrace me half so ill to set a form upon desired change, as I'll myself disgrace, knowing thy will. I will acquaintance strangle and look strange, be absent from thy walks, and in my tongue thy sweet beloved name no more shall dwell, lest I, too much profane, should do it wrong and haply of our old acquaintance tell. For thee against myself I'll vow debate, for I must ne'er love him whom thou dost hate. So there we have it, Sonnet 89. And as you heard, he's expanding on the things that he'd do to take the blame, essentially, in the relationship. Which, as I said last week, it sort of leads you to believe that maybe his lover, in this potentially fictional scenario that Shakespeare's inventing for money, has been taking the blame from the public, and everyone's been going, look, you were bad to Shakespeare, you bastard. Which is why Shakespeare is now going, no, back off, leave him alone. I don't know about you, but I'm just so sick of this bloody relationship now. I'm just over it. Like, you said goodbye. When you finish a relationship, you should give someone the space afterwards to just let things settle. And then, you know, maybe in a couple of months you meet up and you chat about things, but not straight afterwards going, oh, I'll take the blame, don't worry, because I love you, because I still love you, I'll take the blame. It's weird. And I'm sick and tired of it, Shakespeare. Right, so let's dive into this line by line and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about in Sonnet 89. So we start with, say that thou didst forsake me for some fault, and I will comment upon that offence. Which is basically saying, if you were to leave me because of some fault of mine, I would put my hands up and I'd acknowledge that. And I'd explain the fault, I'd expand upon it. So he's a good honest guy, is Shakespeare here. He's saying, look, I would acknowledge the faults that I've made in a relationship. I'm a good guy. Speak of my lameness, and I straight will halt against thy reasons making no defence. This is a little bit of a strange example, but he's saying if you call me lame, which is, back then the term used to describe someone that is disabled physically, and he's saying if you call me disabled, I'll start limping and showing people that I am physically disabled. And I'll do that without defending myself against your accusations. Quite a strange one to bring up. I don't know why his now ex-lover would be saying, go on then, be physically disabled. Show everyone that you are. Why would that come into it? Bizarre. Really weird example, Shakespeare. I think he might have been on the old wacky-backy with this one. Because they did apparently find some remains of marijuana in Shakespeare's garden at some point. Maybe I'll try and find that and link it in the description. I don't think I'm making it up. But I mean, he was probably on all sorts of drugs, wasn't he? They loved drugs back then, as many people do now. But they loved all the opium and all of that sort of stuff. He was probably completely high the whole time, which explains a lot. Anyway, I digress. Thou canst not, love, disgrace me half so ill, to set a form upon desired change, as I'll myself disgrace, knowing thy will. And here he's essentially saying, you can't, my love, disgrace me half as much as I can disgrace myself by changing to match what you desire. And at the end there he says, knowing thy will, so knowing what you want. And then we continue with, I will acquaintance strangle and look strange. Which essentially means I will cut off all ties and be like a stranger to you. So pretend not to know you. So if you bumped into old Shakespeare in the street, you just go, oh, no, I'm just lovely day, isn't it? Look at the sky. Look at that lovely blue sky today, huh? Oh, wow. Something like that. That's a bit of just a role play there for what might happen if they met in the street. But I love that term now, because you'd say look strange. You'd think nowadays would be sort of looking odd, looking weird. But then it was used as actually being strangers, not knowing each other. And then he continues with, be absent from thy walks, and in my tongue thy sweet beloved name no more shall dwell, lest I, too much profane, should do it wrong and haply of our old acquaintance tell. So when he says, be absent from thy walks, he's basically saying, I'll stay away from all the places you like to frequent in life. So if I know that you like to go on that lovely mid-afternoon walk in Hyde Park, I won't be there, alright? So that's very noble of me. And then he goes on to say, I won't ever say your sweet beloved name. I won't even utter it, in case I somehow disrespect it or accidentally tell people that we used to date, which would be terrible, a terrible thing to admit. And now, of course, we're on to the final couplet. For thee against myself I'll vow debate, for I must ne'er love him whom thou dost hate. And here he's saying, look, I'll fight against myself for your sake, because I can never love someone you now hate. Which, is he essentially saying, I can never love myself because you hate me? Wow, that's a very intense thing to say at the end, isn't it? Is that what he's saying? It certainly seems that way. What a bloody tragic thing to say. Oh, Shakespeare, I hope you're alright, mate. You don't sound in the best of ways. These last couple of sonnets have been madness. You're accepting the blame for this relationship that was toxic a lot of the time, but I don't think it was always your fault. I mean, it probably was a lot of the time, but there must have been, there's got to be some blame for the other party in this relationship. The lovely young man, he must have done some bad things, and it's crazy that you're saying I'll accept all blame and I'll tell everyone, even if it's not true. It's sort of so noble, it's stupid. Anyway, that is Sonnet 89, and I quite enjoyed this one, weirdly. Even though he's completely lost his mind, I preferred it to some of the others recently, maybe because it was slightly easier to understand and wrap my head around, but it's got the sort of energy of someone that is going through a breakup and is kind of going a bit insane and saying all these things desperately because they probably still love the person that they were with and the person that they've broken up with, and they're making these bold claims that don't really make sense. Like, I'll be physically disabled if you say that's what I am. Right, I think it's about time we put this to our story, don't you? And if you remember last week, obviously Shakespeare's broken up with his young lover Christopher Marlowe, and Christopher Marlowe is now with Ben Jonson, Shakespeare's frenemy. That's all pretty clear, isn't it? Shakespeare did this big breakup with lots of roses and music and stuff like that. It was quite good, actually. And then he's realised that people are sort of slagging off Christopher Marlowe and saying that he was the reason that they broke up and he was probably quite toxic, and that's really made Christopher Marlowe quite upset. So he's holed himself up in his room in Ben Jonson's house, and Shakespeare's realised, oh no, he's really upset. Ben Jonson has said, yeah, he's really upset, he's not coming out of his room, and Shakespeare's gone round to the house and knocked on the door and said, look, mate, I'll take all the blame, don't worry about that. And he's read Sonnet 88 to him. So let's see how that was received by Christopher Marlowe, and indeed how Sonnet 89 fits into all this. Shakespeare finished reading Sonnet 88 to Christopher Marlowe through the locked door. There was a small pause, and then, I don't believe you, said Christopher Marlowe. Shakespeare leant against the door and said, Marlowe, you have to believe me. I will take the blame for everything, just to make you feel good. Which is insane when you think about it. Marlowe said, you need to prove it. You need to prove it now. And Shakespeare said, oh, well, what do you want me to do? Marlowe said, well, for starters, open up the window and shout into the street that you were toxic in our relationship and you were the bad guy. And Shakespeare said, oh, for God's sake. Well, if that's what's going to make you happy, I will do it. Slowly, Christopher Marlowe unlocked the door and opened it. Shakespeare walked in. The room was an absolute mess. There were tissues everywhere, from crying. Marlowe went over to the window and opened it up and said, well, go on then. Do it. Shakespeare walked over, leant out into the street and went, hey, everyone! Everyone! And slowly, the people milling about in the street looked up to see who was shouting. They saw it was Shakespeare and murmured, hey, it's Shakespeare up there. What's he doing up there? Isn't that Ben Jonson's house? What's going on? And Shakespeare said, I have to tell you something. I am toxic. And everyone gasped. Really? Well, I thought it was Christopher Marlowe who was the toxic one. Oh. And Shakespeare continued, I have been a bad man. I have done bad things in my relationship with Christopher Marlowe. He is innocent and I am bad. There, I said it. Someone shouted up, I don't believe you. You're a celebrity. How could you be bad? And Shakespeare said, look, you've just got to trust me. Sometimes celebrities can be bad too. We can be bad people. We're just like you. And there were some shouts of, we love you, Shakespeare. We don't believe that you're toxic. And Shakespeare looked back at Christopher Marlowe, who was bursting out into tears again, and said, see, even when you tell them they don't believe it, you have to do more, Shakespeare. You have to do more. Shakespeare closed the window and said, well, I think I convinced some of them at least. See, I said that I'm toxic. We're even now. And Christopher Marlowe says, if you really love me, you'll tell them more things bad about yourself. You'll tell them that you're you're disabled. Shakespeare said, sorry, what? I'm disabled? Yes, but I'm not. Well, you tell them though. If you tell them that they'll believe you. And Shakespeare said, I don't really know how that's related to our relationship. Well, if you love me, then you'll do these things for me. Tell me what you'll do for me. Shakespeare said, oh, you're scaring me a little bit, actually, Christopher Marlowe. You're scaring me. You're not yourself. Look, I said that I'll take the blame. What more do you want? I want you to write another sonnet. And I wanted to say more things about what you'll do for me. I wanted to say more things about how you'll say you're toxic to everyone. And then he started crying again. Like a little baby. Shakespeare sighed and quickly turned Sonnet 88 over in his hands to the blank side of the parchment and started writing Sonnet 89. He sat and wrote away in that little room while Christopher Marlowe cried and cried. Hours went by and Shakespeare finally said, all right, Marlowe, I've written another sonnet, and it says more things about what I'll do to explain that I'm toxic, and that I will bend over backwards for you to prove that you are a nice guy. Well, let's hear it then. I want to hear it, Shakespeare. All right. Quiet down. Wipe your eyes. Here it is. Shakespeare cleared his throat and recited Sonnet 89. If you were to leave me because of some fault of mine, I'd acknowledge that and explain the fault. If you call me lame, I'll start immediately limping without defending myself against your accusations. You cannot, my love, disgrace me half as much as I'll disgrace myself by changing to match what you desire. Knowing what you want, I will cut all ties with you and pretend not to know you. I won't go anywhere near the places you go, and I won't speak your sweet name again in case I disrespect it or accidentally tell people we used to date. I'll fight against myself for your sake, because I can never love someone you now hate. So there it is, Sonnet 89. Christopher Marlowe's being bloody annoying, isn't he? Constantly crying. He's got Shakespeare wrapped round his little finger. I feel sorry for everyone in this situation, really. But mainly poor old Shakespeare. Well, I've got a feeling that there might be a part 3 to this sonnet. So we'll see how that fits into this next week. Until then.